I do want to thank everybody for supporting these programs. As I mentioned, I was going through my social media timeline, and we've been doing these Lunch and Learns for about 10 years now. These started off as a Native American Heritage Month weekly presentation we did in November back in 2014, 2015, and it was pretty popular. So here we are 10 years later, and it's changed a little bit. Some of you guys have moved with me and come with me. We all started off at the OCO training room, or actually we started off at the council chambers. We got kicked out of the council chambers. Moved over to the OCO training room, and then we've done a few over at Chota Center, and then, yeah, it's grown a little bit. So I just want to thank you all for your support with this. So today we are going to learn about Andy Payne, a Cherokee citizen who did the Transcontinental Footrace. And so I really don't know a lot about Andy Payne, so I'm excited to have Keith Austin here today to talk about his story. Keith Austin, he does historical consulting with Cherokee Nation Cultural Tourism. He's also a former tribal counselor for District 14. And so everybody please give a warm welcome for Keith Austin.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Keith Austin, and as Catherine said, I was on the Cherokee Nation Tribal Council representing District 14, which includes the communities of Claremore and Foyle. And Foyle is the hometown of Andy Payne, and Andrew Hartley Payne. And Andy Payne is not near as well known as he should be. How many in this room have heard of Andy Payne before they came here today? See, I can tell this group of folks actually cares about history more than most. Usually when you say the name Andy Payne in an audience, you're going to see somewhere around 3 or 4 out of 100 will know who Andy Payne is. And that's a shame when we have a Cherokee of such high accomplishment that is not known better. So I'm going to take you back to 1928, 97 years ago, pardon me. It was the Jazz Age. The Jazz Age was in full swing. Henry Ford had just introduced the Model A. Radio was the up-and-coming media of the day, and America was in the middle of the Prohibition. No liquor was available anyplace. And suddenly, a wild idea hit this country. A 3,400-mile foot race from Los Angeles to New York City to promote the brand new Route 66. Route 66 had just been established a year and a half before, and so the business owners along Route 66 had a strong desire to do something to really increase traffic on Route 66, to drive traffic to their businesses. So they got together and came up with the idea of a 3,400-mile race by foot from LA all the way to New York. It had never been done before. And at the heart of this story is a 20-year-old man named Andy Payne from Oklahoma. He was a Cherokee farm boy, and he was born November 17th, 1907. Do you know what's important about that day? One day before was when Oklahoma became a state. So Andy Payne was actually born in Oklahoma, not in Indian Territory. If he'd been born 2 days earlier, he would have been born in Indian Territory. His parents were farmers, and they farmed. Part of the land that they farmed was part of their allotment land that they had gotten about 20 years earlier in their allotment. He was a citizen of the Cherokee Nation. He grew up farming, and he lived several miles from school, and his brothers and sisters would take a horse. But Andy actually would run most of the time to school rather than take a horse. It was reported that sometimes when the weather was bad, he would ride the horse to school. Then he would forget that he rode the horse to school and run back home. And then he would have to run back to school to get the horse because he forgot that he had rode the horse that morning. So he was truly known as a quiet, humble, and tough individual. He competed in running in high school at the level of the high school level there at Foyle, a small town. But he won quite a bit, but nobody thought that he was anything really, really special. But when he was 20 years old, times were kind of tough on the farm. It was 1928, and the Depression had not hit America yet. But times were tough on the farm. And Andy was now an adult, and he was trying to figure out a way to actually make something out of his life. The family knew the Rogers family. The Rogers family just lived about 4 or 5 miles away as the bird would fly. And the Payne family and the Rogers family actually interacted a lot. As a matter of fact, Andy's dad worked on the Rogers family ranch at various times. So the families were quite familiar with each other. And of course, they were very proud of Will Rogers because in 1928, he was literally the biggest thing in show business. So Andy decided he would go to California and with the hopes of breaking into show business like Will Rogers had done. So Andy goes out to California and finds out that breaking into show business really isn't all that easy. So he's really not finding his way. So it's not too long after he gets there that he sees a poster, and the poster is advertising a race. It's called the Intercontinental Footrace, and it was being promoted by C.C. Pyle. This was as a result of all these business owners who had, along Route 66, who had wanted to do this. C.C. Pyle was a sports promoter. He was actually one of the very first, he established the first New York Yankees football team, not baseball team, but football team of the American Football League back in the 1920s. And he also was the first guy who actually took tennis on the road and actually had traveling tennis matches and created a new sport for America. So he was very, very well known, but he was much like P.T. Barnum. You know who P.T. Barnum was, right? The guy who with the circus, Barnum and Bailey. He was a promoter and a showman, and he wasn't all that good at managing, but he was a very good promoter. So he put together this idea. The Intercontinental Footrace would start in Menlo Park in California, in L.A., and it would go across the country on Route 66 all the way to Chicago, and then it would take the next 1,000 miles on various highways until you got to Madison Square Garden in New York City. It would end with a 200 laps around the track at Madison Square Garden in New York City. It was, a lot of people didn't believe the human body could even do that. It simply had not been done much. But he promised a prize of $25,000 for the winner. $25,000 for the winner in today's money is a lot of money, but back then realized $25,000 is equal to somewhere around $500,000 in today's money. So it was very real money. The second prize was $10,000. The third prize was $5,000, and each of the top 10 would receive substantial payouts. So that kind of money actually truly attracted a lot of people. He also went out and recruited some of the world's best runners to come compete, to really get the name up there. He got Olympians, college athletes, and so forth that were people that the world knew their names in order to get the excitement around this race up. When he did that, of course, there was a lot of people that decided they wanted to do this. He made an entry fee of $150. And now mind you, $150 is equal to somewhere around $3,000 in today's money. So that's real money. But it's an entry fee of somewhere around $150. And if you ran the entire distance of the race, however, you got your $150 back, so you have money to travel back home with. So in the lead up to the race, Andy Payne decided, I'm going to do this. Now, Andy had no training other than high school track. He had no sponsors. He didn't have wealthy family back home to support him while he did this. Andy came home to Claremore after he made this decision to do this, and he really worked hard to try to get the local people to support him. The Chamber of Commerce of Claremore made a $75 donation to him. and his dad borrowed $75 so that he could come up with the money to enter the race. His dad, can you imagine going to your dad and saying, Dad, I've got this idea. I'm going to run across the country, and it's going to make me a lot of money, but I need you to pay me, $1,500 today in order for me to do this. Yeah, I don't think Dad's going to be all that excited about that. So it was officially called the Transcontinental Footrace, but it was nicknamed the Bunion Derby by the journalists. Now, C.C. Pyle, who did this, didn't have the money to promise the $25,000, but he thought he could make it on the road. So he actually put together a carnival that would travel with the race as it went across the United States. So every night the carnival set up in whatever city they were at, and they sold tickets to the carnival in order to try to raise funds in order to pay for the race. So he had two buses. One of them was a bus full of journalists, radio reporters and newspaper reporters, and the other bus was C.C. Pyle and the management and the cook and so forth. They traveled with a large tent, and every day they would run from one city to the next city. With each day, the total amount of time for each runner would be documented, and then they would accumulate those totals as they went through the race. So every night they would sleep in a tent. The tent would be right beside the carnival with all the carnival noise. And soon they found out that C.C. Pyle was not paying the cook. And the cook actually quit. So C.C. Pyle would give each runner $1.50 per day in order to go out and find your own food. Now, when C.C. Pyle made these promises, it attracted a very diverse group of people to run this race. The people who ran this race were from age 16 to age 63. I turned 63 last week, and I can tell you, I'm not running a foot race across the United States. But 16 to 63 ran this race. There was about 300 people that actually signed up for the race. About 100 of them dropped out before the race started because in order to qualify for the race, they made you train for a month before the race. And you had to show that you could run 25 miles a day for several days in a row in order to qualify for the race. So that immediately dropped out a whole bunch of them. After those dropped out, we ended up with about 200 people who stood in line for the starter pistol, which it wasn't actually a starter pistol. C.C. Pyle did things right. He actually exploded a bomb in Menlo Park in order to start this race. So about 55 people finished the race, however. So you started out with about 255 actually finished the race. One of the things that was a challenge for the racers was the shoes of the day simply weren't very good shoes. Spalding actually supplied 5 pairs of shoes for each runner for the race. But not all the runners actually chose to use the Spalding shoes. There was runners that started the race barefoot. There was runners that started the race in work boots. There was runners that started the race in jogging clothes, like the jersey you see here. And then there was runners that started the race in overalls, in just button-up shirts and so forth. So it was a very diverse-looking group of folks that started off from California. As they went from California, they left California and entered Arizona. Arizona, of course, has all the climates that you could imagine all in one state. They had mountains, they had deserts. And by the third day, they had 12 people a day had quit the race in those first few days. By the time they got through Arizona, they realized that the desert had sandstorms. They had snow in the peaks of the mountains. They had 7,500 feet elevation, where the air is very thin. So you had a grueling period of time there going through Arizona. Nobody thought Andy Payne was even a competitor in this race when they started. There was two men that they really thought were the front runners. One of them was a runner from England, Peter Nuzio, and another was a guy named John Salo from New Jersey. And both of these gentlemen were truly competitors, but Andy Payne, by the time they got through Arizona, was actually coming in number 2 most days, and even came in number 1 a time or two. So all of a sudden, people were starting to take notice of who Andy Payne was. So by the time they got through Arizona and then New Mexico, they entered Texas. There was a number of racers who were black gentlemen, and the black racers were treated totally as equals, but once they hit Texas, Texas laws meant that they couldn't sleep in the same tent, and they couldn't eat in the same tent, and they couldn't, they had a lot of laws all of a sudden when they hit the South there that the black racers had to be treated differently. The racers themselves didn't realize that until they hit Texas. So C.C. Pyle had to come up with quick accommodations in order to allow the race to go through the panhandle of Texas. After the 9 days of going through the panhandle of Texas, they entered Oklahoma finally. And by the time they entered Oklahoma, Andy Payne was officially in the lead. Well, they entered Route 66 in Oklahoma on the west end of Oklahoma. And when they did, Andy Payne was treated like a hero. They actually printed special edition, Andy Payne special edition programs for the race to sell as they went through Oklahoma. Andy was treated truly like a hero as he came through Oklahoma. Every newspaper and every radio station lined the streets and took pictures. And by the time they got into Oklahoma, every town started letting their school kids out in order to come see the race. So when they went through Tulsa, they had 40,000 people lining the streets in Tulsa to witness the race and cheer on Andy. As they came through Claremore and Foyle and Chelsea, it was like the whole county was turned out. One of the most known people who turned out that day was Will Rogers himself. Will Rogers put out a statement that he had to make a quick trip home to Oklahoma because that Andy Payne was about to steal his favorite son status. So he made a quick trip home to congratulate Andy. One of the challenges for Andy coming through Oklahoma, though, was that the people were cheering him on so much and wanting a piece of him that they would run out into the street to get his signature, and they would all want to have him stop and just chat. Well, that really made it hard for him to keep his pace. Now, one of the reasons why Andy Payne was able to do so well in the race is because he started out understanding that you do not run if you're going to go 3,400 miles. He developed a running style that now I think we would call power walking. And somebody described it as it looked like a fast turtle making a run. So he did that, and it actually made it much less of an impact on his joints and much less a damage to his feet as he walked, this very fast walk that he created. It was a very fast walk, actually. He averaged 6 miles per hour for 84 days and for 3,446 miles. So he truly did have a very fast pace, but he didn't lift his legs up, he didn't slam his legs down. Everything looked like he was just really walking very fast, is what it looked like. Now, one of my favorite stories about the race was somewhere around Arizona, there was a dog, it was a collie, that was apparently a stray, and it just joined the race. It joined the race, and it ran over 500 miles along the race before the dog finally disappeared. Nobody knows where the dog went finally, but the dog stayed with the race all the way from Arizona through Oklahoma into Missouri before the dog finally decided that it was done racing. They nicknamed that dog Blisters, by the way. So without question, even to today, this was the single biggest event that has ever happened on Route 66 at any time in history in the United States. And it so happened to be right through Oklahoma. And the day that Andy came through Claremore, Oklahoma was April 17th, so 2 days from today. As today, 97 years ago, Andy would have been somewhere around Bristow, Oklahoma, as he was heading towards Tulsa. And they spent the night in Tulsa and then on to Claremore, from Tulsa to Chelsea that evening. So every one of the runners that actually lived anywhere close to the route was treated somewhat like a hero as they came through their hometown. Not very many of them did that, however. But if you ran this race, Andy, you can see Andy right here. The runners would turn a very, very dark bronze because they were outside literally all day long for 84 days in a row. And they also lost a lot of body weight. Their skin just hung off of them by the time they got finished with it. When Andy was in Oklahoma, that was just halfway through the race. He didn't look too bad by that point, but by the time he got through the race, he really was looking bad. One of the racers was from Cleveland, Ohio, and as they went through Cleveland, he took the time to go home, and his kids didn't know who he was. He looked so ragged. So that was hard on a person physically. So while Andy was running across the country, he also developed tonsillitis. And they had a doctor that traveled with them theoretically, but Andy didn't let the tonsillitis stop him. It did slow him down a few days, but he didn't let the tonsillitis stop him. He kept running even with the fever and with the tonsillitis. After about 3 days, the fever went away and he was able to keep going. His the top three runners that I was talking about there, Johnny Salo, Peter Nuzio, and him, were each doing very well and so forth. But finally, Peter Nuzio had a tooth infection. And Peter Nuzio thought he could get through the race with the tooth infection, but he couldn't eat anything. And to run, they were averaging 40 miles per day every single day. To run 40 miles a day, it's going to take some real calories. So all Peter Nuzio could do was drink soup, and he simply couldn't get enough calories in him to fuel his body. So he had to quit. That was one of Andy Payne's secret weapons was just like Wilma Mankiller said, as a Cherokee, he just simply never gave up. Andy Payne simply never gave up. And he, even though he may have hurt with tonsillitis, he simply never gave up. He understood that pacing was what would win the race, not speed. It would be pacing and keeping his pace. Well, as he came through Foyle, Oklahoma, he actually got to take a brief stop. He got to kiss his girlfriend. And then he got to have a meal with his family for the first time and really got a decent meal that evening, and it really fueled him for the next leg of the race. He ran through, as he ran through the route, after they left Route 66 in Illinois, they ran through various roads, and as they got close to New York City, one of the towns they ran through was Passaic, New Jersey. And Passaic, New Jersey was the hometown of Johnny Salo, who was the expected winner of the race before Andy was showing everybody up. Well, Johnny Salo from this little town in New Jersey, Johnny had always been a shipbuilder, worked part-time doing various things. Shipbuilding was the primary thing he had done. But Andy had got reports that the good folks in New Jersey were going to hurt him as he came through Passaic, New Jersey, because they didn't want him to beat their hometown boy. And so the police there actually escorted him through town to keep him safe. He never felt like he was truly in danger once he was there, but the police kept the kept them at bay. Now, I think it's kind of interesting. Johnny Salo was a local hero in that town, of course. And Johnny Salo turned 35 years old as he was in his hometown. The cutoff date to become a police officer in Passaic, New Jersey is 35 years old. So the day he was 34 years and 1 day short of being 35, the chief of police of Passaic, New Jersey actually came out onto the running trail and hired him to be a policeman. So when he finished the race, he would have a job to come home to. So when they got to New York finally, you would think, good deal, they're about to get home. Andy was at that time 16 hours ahead of his nearest competitor. So the truth is, nobody was going to catch Andy Payne at that point. 16 hours, it simply was already, the standings were already there. So 55 men were entering New York with Andy way out in the lead. But Mr. Pyle was still trying to find a way to make some money off of this race. So he made it to where the last day of the race would be 200 laps around the Madison Square Garden for the remaining 55 competitors. And he sold tickets to the garden there in order to try to raise money. Can you imagine getting that close to the end and saying, I've got to run 200 laps around the Madison Square Garden? Well, they got to the Madison Square Garden, and Andy won the race. It was 573 hours, 4 minutes and 34 seconds of running. Average of 40 miles a day, which is what's a marathon? 26.2? So it's a marathon and a half every single day for 84 days in a row. The shortest day was 15 miles, and the longest day was 75 miles that they ran in one day. And as they got towards the end, they actually ran longer days. It was like 50-plus mile days each day towards the end of the race. So it was truly horrendous to keep up that pace at that point. So the grand prize, $25,000, right? However, when they got there, C.C. Pyle informed him that he didn't have the money in the bank. He tried to get Andy to settle for $5,000 if he would take it right now. And Andy said he wouldn't do it. Andy fought hard. It took him several months, but he finally got the $25,000 out of him. Now, those actual checks are on display at the Claremore Museum of History. If you're ever in Claremore, please visit there. And they've got his original jersey on display there, too. So take a look at that. The life after the finish line, he was looking for an occupation that would allow him to use the fame that he had gotten. Mind you, the Congress actually recognized Andy Payne after this race. The world knew who Andy Payne was. All of a sudden, he was a celebrity. And he wanted to try to use that celebrity as, he's always described as a very humble man, but it's quite apparent that he understood the power of celebrity as well. So right after this race, he decided that he was going to first he took care of business. He paid off the family farm. He built his mom and dad a house, and he bought himself a new Ford Model A. So, and then he spent some time with his girlfriend. Then he taught himself how to rope and got him some fancy-looking clothes, and he called himself the Oklahoma Dancing Cowboy. And he went to California trying to break into show business again. And it didn't take him very long to realize that he was no Will Rogers. So he came back home, and it wasn't too long before he entered the University of Arkansas. And he went to work as a newspaper reporter. He went to work as a newspaper reporter, and during that time, he got married to his wife, Vivian. So he got to be quite known as a newspaper reporter in the area. And then after he finished that, he actually ran for the court clerk of Rogers County. unsuccessfully. He didn't win that race. And then in 1934, at the age of 27, he was elected to a statewide race, statewide office. It was called the Clerk of the Oklahoma Supreme Court. He served that role as an elected statewide official in the state of Oklahoma for 38 years. So he was elected by the people of Oklahoma that many times. He took 2 years off during World War II, but during those 2 years, his wife was elected for 2 years. So the Payne family served in that role for all those years. He actually did not he was never defeated because the Constitution of Oklahoma changed to where it made that role a appointed role rather than a elected role. And so he was the last elected clerk of the Oklahoma Supreme Court. So after he was age 40, he decided he was going to go back to law school as well. So while he was clerk of the Oklahoma Supreme Court, he enrolled in Oklahoma City University School of Law, and he got his law degree in short order there. So he became a lawyer himself. He invested heavily in land, and he became quite wealthy because some of the land he bought had oil and gas on it. And so he ended up becoming quite wealthy. He and Will Rogers shared many things. Of course, they were both from Rogers County. They were both Cherokee, and their fathers had worked together. And Will used humor to connect to folks, and Andy used his attitude of humility. And it's reported that Will Rogers and him became very good friends before he died. Today, Andy has left quite a legacy, but it's not universally known, but it's important that we let more people know about his legacy. You will see right here is a statue. That statue, there's 3 copies of that statue. One of them is in Andy's hometown of Foyle, Oklahoma. One of them is in Claremore, Oklahoma, at the Claremore Museum of History. And one of them is right in front of the Cherokee Heritage Center in the plaza right there in front of the Cherokee Heritage Center. So that's one way that he's remembered. Another is that a section of Route 66 in Foyle, Oklahoma, of the original Route 66, goes right through the downtown area of Foyle, has been named Andy Payne Boulevard, which is very appropriate because that's part of the road that he ran on. And the Claremore High School track field is now called the Andy Payne Field. And then on Saturday, this past Saturday, April 12th of 2025, Cherokee Nation, along with the Claremore Museum of History, hosted the first ever Andy Payne Route 66 5K run in Claremore. And over 300 racers lined the streets of Claremore to make that run this past week. So I was very proud that we were able to do that to show honor to him on the week that he ran through Claremore. Andy's story isn't just about miles or just about money. It's about resiliency and toughness. It's about what it means to keep going, to just keep going. He ran not just for himself, but for his family. His run gave a lot of people hope. A lot of people who were struggling, a lot of people could put their hope in that. And on that long road across Route 66, Andy Payne proved that the way to win was just to keep moving. When he asked why he was entered the race, he said, "Because I just thought I could do it." Well, Andy Payne was right. He could do it. Thank you all.